Hey everybody, how's it going? This is OurHouse21, and I'm back for part 2 of my Boca bearing ceramic lightning bearing swap video for my Team Associated Apex. So, part 1, I took a little time to give an overview of the Apex platform, talked a little about it, and also showed some of the modifications in my heavily modified Team Associated Apex. Good platform. So, it separates into 3 pieces. Central chassis, front end, and back end. So first video I separated the car into the 3 major assemblies. So now I'm going to go ahead and dive into the front end of this car. So alright, so looking at it, you've pretty much got bearings in 3 main places of this car. You've got a set of bearings that are up here in the steering arms. Then you've got a set of bearings that are back here in the actual wheel axles, the hubs. And finally, you have a set of bearings that are inside here, inside the differential housing. So I think the first thing I'll do is go ahead and dive into the suspension arms since they're right here. So generally, most cars who have bearings up here have 2 bearings on each side. So you can see here there's 1 and there's 2. And I also have 3 and 4. So for this particular car, you've got this removable shaft that comes out. So I'm going to see if I can use this shaft to, actually it doesn't look like it's gonna work. No problem. All right, so I'm gonna have to be creative. I'm going to use my little tool here, just get in here and see if I can just pop this guy out. So this is always a little bit of a discovery process to see what works. Okay, just be careful, because if you have any hopes of reusing or selling these bearings, you want to make sure that you don't damage them when you remove them. Okay, so as you see, I got the very first one out. So now that that one's out, I may be able to poke through here and get the no, can't. All right, so let's go ahead and pry the second one out. Okay, so those are out, and let's go ahead and set these guys over here to the side. And these are teeny tiny little suckers. So let's now look in my bearing kit, see which ones these are. Okay. Nope. Here we go. All right, so these are, I'll let you guys read the model number yourselves. Okay, so I've got these out, and these are the SMR 85C UUs. Okay. Okay, so, all right, let's get these little guys out. Okay, and for those who don't know, the main reason why you want to use a ceramic bearing in a lot of applications isn't necessarily because they're going to have lower resistance. They are generally. Generally, a ceramic bearing will have lower rolling resistance than a steel bearing, but the other aspect of it is that ceramic bearings also wear a lot less over time. So you may get a performance improvement initially just because they're smoother and they have lower drag, but then you'll most definitely get a performance improvement over time because they're not going to rust up and turn into crud like a lot of steel bearings will over time. All right, so that's pretty much it from there. So that's number 1 done. I'm just going to put these 2 little shafts to the side here. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and do the axles. So another modification that I made for this car was all my other 10th scale cars use a 7mm lug nut up here, and the Team Associated Apex for some reason used a screw. I have nothing against the screw method. It seemed to work, but you know, I want to have standard. I want to have things standard across my fleet. So in one of my videos, I'll post a card to it. You can see where I modified this to accept a standard shaft. So put the shaft on. Now I can use the same 4mm locking nuts that I use on my Traxxas Rustlers. I should say, Kyle and I use on our Rustlers. Okay, all right. And as you can see, I've actually balanced these guys. Hey, if you're going to go for 100+ miles an hour, you have to have this. You have to get every advantage that you can. All right. So now let's go ahead and pull off the hubs. Okay, for this I'm going to use a flathead screwdriver just as a pry. Fortunately, my little Turnigy has a flathead bit. Just stick this guy underneath. Just pop it right off. Let me set it there. Same on the other side. Pops right off. And again, because this car is a little interesting, the Team Associated, apparently they like to use triangular fittings to go fit down here and get a good, you know, positive lock in here. Traxxas, for example, uses a rod that sticks through a round shaft. Both methods seem to work. You know, the thing about this one is that it's loose, so it comes off easy. That can be a good thing or a bad thing. All right, so now we've got that, and I believe all I really need to do is I can do this a couple ways, because you've got a dog bone that's down the side of here. So I need to separate this guy. I could take off the top and the bottom and have it come off and it basically pull off just this knuckle here. Or I could take out this one screw here that's holding on that pin and then just rotate the pin out. I'll do it the hard way, which doesn't really seem to be that hard. So just a little button head. And the reason I'm doing it this method as opposed to taking out the pin is the pin is a little Phillips screw, or is held in by a little Phillips screw. And I told you that in order to do the job, all you need are the metric tools. But also, I'm paranoid about stripping out screws unnecessarily these days. All right, so that's come out. The little dog bone comes out like that. So now I've got the hub. I can pull out the entire hub assembly, and you see there's the screw in the front. Sorry, it comes out together. You got the bearing. This bearing pretty much looks like it's pressed on, pops off. And there's the other bearing that's inside the seat. Logic would dictate that these would be the same bearing. Car makers don't always apply logic, but it looks like this time they did. Okay, so I have two identically sized bearings. Let's go ahead and find their match. And that would be these guys here. And this is, here's the part number. So you see you have 8 of them. Really easy to identify because it's the only set that has 8. So pull out 2. Now, one interesting thing about these bearings versus the new ones, you can see that this has a one interesting thing about these ones versus the stock bearings, you can see that these have a plastic dust cap on them. These have a metal dust cap. I don't know if that does anything differently for the performance, but it's a visually different thing, so I'm pointing it out. All right, so now this pulls in here. Now, I've ranted before that I'm not a big fan of dog bones, but this is a situation where I say this is a proper application of dog bone technology. Basically, they use it to make a nice U-joint. That works well, so I like that. For the drive shaft, I don't think you want that much freedom of motion on that part. So it's just me caused a headache. But you know, it is what it is. And you know what? I'm just going to leave this free for right now because I'm going to have to go into that momentarily. So let's go ahead and pull off the other side. There. And I probably should have done this in the first place. Oh, and I see that 2 little spacers have just dropped out from underneath there. Don't lose those. That would be bad. Okay.
Hi, Daddy.
Hi, Robin. Okay, so.
Here you go, Lexi.
All right, so this is quality engineering at work here. Team Associated, to keep these holes from getting stripped out with plastic, they have a metal sleeve that goes in each of them. So I'm gonna take them out and put them over here on side to keep track of them. Don't lose these when you put things back together or else you're gonna get sloppy in your suspension. All right, so now that's off. I'm just gonna set that here. And let's go ahead and get the one I didn't do yet. This comes same part as before. All right, that's 3. Okay, that's 4. Okay, let's go ahead and get 2 more. Now, this would be a point where if your car was visibly dirty, this would be a great time to get in here and to clean it up. I did a fairly good job of keeping this car clean, which could just mean I haven't driven it enough. But, you know, if you have a time, or you have the time, this is a great moment to go ahead and clean things up. And if you need to lubricate things, if you see corrosion, it's a great time to take care of that as well. All right, so steering and front hubs done. So I'm just gonna set these aside. Now we get to go into here. So just to make life a little bit easier, I'm gonna take off the bumper. I don't think I have to, but I think I will take it off just for the heck of it. Now set these over here. Oh, no. No, those have to stay there. Thank you, Nathan.
Need to buy the seat.
Yeah, Nathan has a seat.
But then need to buy the
Okay.
files. Okay, need to buy that seat.
All right, so it looks like on this car, just looking by how it was made, it looks like the axle housing here, or the differential housing, comes apart with 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it looks like I can take this off and lift it up and just go off to the races. Also looks like it's being held down to the bottom by this plate. So I think what I'm going to do is take off this bottom plate, then take off this top, I'm going to take off the bottom plate and hopefully separate the top end of this and go from there. Yep. All right.
Daddy, I see it.
You want to see it? Yep, that's the bottom side of this differential.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
It's a battery.
That's not a battery. Everything is not a battery, son. Okay. So now that I've taken off the bottom.
Daddy, they found the seat. Whoa, that's 1 people.
Okay, let's go ahead and take off the top. So this just pulls right up. Now this comes out and this comes out. That's slick. All right, so as you can see here, there's just a little bit of grease inside of here. So as you see, we actually have metal gears, which is sweet, and which is very, very important, for, especially if you're trying to do like a speed run type of application, because these things take a lot more abuse. So they're basically maintenance free is what it boils down to. As you can see, I've got 4 bearings to go after here. So I'll do this on the actual differential first. So it looks like I've got a 2.5 millimeter or 2 millimeter set screw here. So, yep, that comes right off. Make sure I don't lose the screw. Here's one. Okay. So next, this one comes off. And making sure I don't lose the set screw. These guys. Now this bearing just pops right out. Or I should say it should pop right out. Let's see if it actually does. There we go. Take your time with this. Be gentle, be careful. You don't want to destroy your bearings. Bearings aren't made to take side loads. They're made to be up and down loads. So if you pull too hard, you can wreck the bearing. You might not care, but if you want to reuse them, like I said, you might. Okay, so these, again, look like they're the same size. So let me go to the kit. And it looks like these are this number here. So let me get these two. So now these go on each side and just press right on. That's one.
And 2.
And that's 2.
And that's 3.
Yeah, this one takes a little bit more force to get on than the other one does.
Daddy, and that's 3.
Oh, just 2, not 3. Okay, and now this, there's a little detent in here for it, so you know where it goes. I'm going to tighten this one down by hand. Okay, where's my 2 millimeter? There it is. Okay, make sure that when you put this thing on that the little notch hasn't moved around on you. Okay? That if it does that, then that means you're not seated properly, so it's not going to be able to handle power properly. Okay? So that's one. And here's number 2. Again, just seat that bad boy down. Then just torque it in place by hand. In my case, it's just me being paranoid. There, and that's good. So now I'm just going to go ahead and drop that back in here. And this is interesting. It looks like you can actually put it in either direction. So I guess they do that to allow you to, like for different models, if you need to change direction of rotation. So that's actually kind of slick engineering. That basically what that means is that they can use the same housing for multiple vehicles. So that's slick. Okay. All right, So I'm just going to set this aside here for 1 second. I need to go grab my grease. Excuse me, Nate. Okay, so just for the heck of it, I grabbed, so I just happen to have a set of differentials, and this is the car that this the Apex is based on. It's the ProRally. So this is from Dollar Hobbies, and this is a ProRally differential. And as you can see, it's the exact same differential case, but they use different ring gears. So it looks like, if you really wanted to, there's tuning options. So you could go with different ratios, but I like the stock ratio, at least for right now. Why would you want to go to a different ratio? If you're trying to get different wheel speed, I'd go more for torque as opposed to raw speed. So if you're trying to balance torque versus raw speed, for me, I'm looking for raw speed. You know, that's what Speed Runner is all about. So I actually want to have a lower gear reduction, which gives me more spin. So the other thing to take into mind is that you don't know when the next time you're going to be inside of here is. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply some fresh grease. I mean, the stuff, I have no reason to believe that the stuff inside of here is bad. I mean, this car hasn't been driven in a wet. It hasn't been really abused. You know, just as I said, it's a good, just practical aspect. You don't know when the next time you're going to be inside of these things are. So it only takes a few minutes. So I'm just going to put, I like to use this. This is Phil Wood's waterproof grease. I've had this tube since I was in college. Okay, but I've actually it's funny, I reached out to Phil and let him know that I was doing high-speed RC with his products and that I thought they were great. And he actually wrote me back and sent me a whole box. Well, sent me another tube of the grease and then also a tube of his oil, which is awesome stuff too. So I use the oil on a lot of my gears. So this is done. So I can go ahead and drop this back down. Okay. Thank you, Nathan. All right, now, had I actually used some forethought, I probably wouldn't have greased this just yet, because now I need to get this C-clip off of here. So a few ways to get off a C-clip. I'm going to try it the hard way. Just going to use my screwdriver here, get it in there, see if I can pop it out. Actually, I'm going to use a smaller blade. Somewhere out there, somebody probably knows a good trick for pulling these things off easy. If you do know that trick, if you are that guy, please let me know. Okay, Nathan, please don't lose that. I'm gonna need it later. All right, so once you get the C-clip off, the gear comes right off. And now you can just take off these two bearings right here. And ta-da. So now, the only bearings I have left are these guys right here. And here's the model numbers. I need two. I need two to do. All right, there we go. So now these two go back on. And now I can put the pinion gear back on here. And now I can get this C-clip back in. There we go.
You put some grease.
This is machine grease. There we go. So now it's all set.
That is the waterproof grease.
That's right, it's waterproof grease. So I'm just gonna again put a little dab on this again. Now, most of this grease, honestly, is just gonna be thrown to the outside of this case once the car starts to run. But a dry gear is an unhappy gear. There we go. So I'm just going to give it a few spins around just to make sure that everything is nice and happy. Okay. I think that's pretty close to perfect. All right, so now I can drop this housing back down, just like that. Just making sure everything is spinning nicely without binding. Okay, so now I can drop these 4 screws back in the top. Oh, if you're using one of these tools, make sure you don't have it over torqued, because then you can strip out the hole. I'm just gonna have a low torque setting to seat it and then finishing it by hand. Even there, I think that overdid it. So I'm just going to do a 2. There we go. All right, so now I can put the bottom on. All right, so front clip is all, at least this part is all buttoned up. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the steering back together. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and reassemble the steering. Now remember, you have these little sleeves here that hold the steering arm in place, and they basically protect the screw holes. You want to make sure you use those. You don't want to forget them. Okay, so I got that in place. I can slide the dog bone in, get it seated. All right, so we got those pieces in place. Let's go ahead and put the bumper back on. So now these sleeves go back in here and here. And
that's waterproof grease.
Yep, it's waterproof grease, Nathan. Okay. Yep. So this is pretty much as far as we can go right now until we're ready to put the whole assembly back together.
Water.
Okay, so let me go ahead and put these hexes on just so I don't lose them. And I'll set this aside. All right, so now front clip is done.